Hello everybody, it's Andrew Byrne here, and we're going to take a couple more looks at, or look at a couple more examples of the Phrygian half cadence, or the mi cadence, however you want to call it. In this time, I'm looking at music by Handel. In one case, actually, it's not going to be a cadence, but it's an interesting moment in terms of a composition where we can see the figure used, but for other reasons. So let's take a look now at Opus 1 from Handel. This is in this case, we're going to be listening to a recording by Bart Kauken, who's a very famous Baroque flute and historical flute player who's now like long retired, but still around and kicking. Here we go. So what I have here is the Adagio. This is Opus 1, number 1. And we're going to listen to the first example. I'm just going to make sure we have a lot of sound here. Yep. And here we go. So as you can tell here, he does this really interesting triplet figure here as the sort of cadence. And essentially the cadence begins on beat 1. So the dissonance is a B. So it would be this note tied over. And the general thing, as you can tell, is that he ends up trilling 1 octave below B-A, right? So 7/6 is the trill. And this is something that ideally in a Phrygian cadence, this is what we want to end up doing to point out the cadence. What is unfortunate is in the Telemon F minor, third movement, for example, we're not, the bassoon part doesn't have the 7/6 written. It just goes dim dum dee, ending on the third. Dum da di da da dee. Sorry, that's the wrong key, but yeah, ba di da da dee, and that's an E natural above a C. So that's an unfortunate moment where we have this Phrygian cadence in the Telemon for in a big bassoon work, for example, but then the harpsichord for some reason is given the 7/6 to show. Here is how it would, is the ideal scenario, and you can tell. Bart is using. He's throwing in all sorts of the quants variations and stuff. He's really doing quants in this piece, and you can hear him ad-libbing all over the place. But let's listen again just to the end here to hear once again what he does. Oops. Just gonna play it one more time. Oops. So be da dee do da dee do da dee dee yeah. Dee da dee do da dee do da dee dee. I'm pretty sure he begins here on the high B. Rhythmically speaking, that's where he begins. So you have this sort of feeling of freedom that's going on. And you can hear that he is playing a little bit with the tempo. There's a certain element of rubato or whatever you want to call it there. So that's really interesting. Let's go to another example. Okay, so here we are, Handel Opus 1, same opus number 2. the Adagio in that movement. This is Richard Egar conducting the Academy of Ancient Music. It says Rachel Brown. I know her as a traverso flute player, not as a recorder player, so it might not be her, but I'm not. It could be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the other. I know Pavlo Beznoziuk is not the person. It says Rachel Brown twice. Whatever. Anyway, here we go. Let's go with number 2, the Adagio. Yeah, so this sounds a little bit less artfully not together than some pieces, like the cover for many instrumentalists, especially like the teacher level in a major conservatory. They all tell you like, oh, it was never supposed to be together, that sort of thing. And what I hear on this recording is that these guys didn't have enough rehearsal time, and it's really not quite clear what's supposed to be happening. But anyway, in any case, what I find interesting here is that they do add a little cadenza before the trill, of course, and where they trill 7/6, the D to C over the E flat. So let's have a listen again right to the end to hear how they do it. I'm going to go, I'm in the wrong player. Let's go sort of right here. I'm surprised actually because there's so obviously a fingering mistake in this recording, which is by a serious group with serious players, and yet like any bachelor student in Basel could do a better technical job at playing the recorder. So sad they don't get the opportunity. In any case, yeah, so you hear that they add the dee oh yeah da da, so adding more notes here, but relatively keeping to the time. A little slow down, partly because the player obviously can't play it any faster. I don't. It doesn't sound artfully done to me. It sounds like they're struggling all the way through. But nevertheless, what they do is allowed. Let's put it that way. Let's put it in a kind or semi-kind way. Okay, so now we're in the same opus again. Sonata number 3, the first movement, the Andante movement. And we're going to start, this is, I think this is Pavlo Beznoziuk playing. And we're going to listen to him play basically from the penultimate line here, I think on the tie over from the high F sharp. So here we go. Uh-oh, no, there. Right, so super simple, in this case, plays basically straight through. But you have the opportunity, I would say, because basically from the penultimate bar, or the last bar of the penultimate line, it's clearly like a coda or a bridge to this final adagio cadence. And what I find interesting is that it says adagio right on the trill, and he sort of avoids doing more. He actually doesn't play adagio. He just goes dim bom bo da dia ya da da. That's all he does. Whereas I think this is signaling that we could take even more time here if we wanted to, while the low F is sounding. Or what could be the case, and what happens a lot when you have singers singing cadenzas at the end of a da capo aria, is that they take the adagio section, they play obviously it's not a mi cadence, it's a regular cadential formula, but you have this 5, and then they sing their cadenza, and then 5 1. And what you could have here, theoretically, if you organize it with your continuo team, is that they could play the low F, dum, dum, and then you do a little cadenza, dum, dee, and then they re-hit the low F at the end of the cadenza as you're playing the trill, and then play the final note. Yeah, so here we see he sort of avoids doing too much. And let's just listen to that one more time. I don't even know. So he takes a little time, but it's very little what he does there. Good. So now we're in the same piece, Opus 1, number 3, the Adagio movement, so the third movement of the same collection, same piece. And interesting enough, we have the cadenza written out. I mean, theoretically, there's nothing more that you need to do. And same recording, same people, Pablo Besnosiuk playing. Interesting take. He just plays as written, and when you listen to it, you think, okay, well, maybe this is sort of what I should be constructing, given what's written here. So you could argue, of course, that because it's so decorated here, why not decorate this area here? But it's also like purposefully written out at a slower value in general. And so you might take it as a signal that this is how you should play it. But what I find interesting here is that it's actually relatively decorated exactly in the area where we would improvise over, whereas so many of the pieces that we have for bassoon or like recorder sonatas or that sort of thing, where it's maybe for a more amateur audience, that this area would be written out simply, and then we'd have a trill on the either the final note or on the second beat of the third of the bar. Sorry, the third big beat of the bar. Okay, last examples, two examples from, of course, number 4 from Handel Opus 1. It's funny, every sonata in this seems to have a bunch of these Phrygian cadences, which is great, actually, for this exercise. So we're going to look at the first movement and the third movement, which is Larghetto and Adagio. So here we are, sonata number 4, Opus 1. And I'm just going to skip basically to the end, to this last line here. Bidam, ba-dee-da-dee-da. And here we have two examples where we do have some much more, I guess you could say, some liberty taken. So let's have a quick listen. I think it's 220 or roughly there. Here we go. It's taken in a really free way by Richard Egar in the right, so he fools around more in the right hand to show to show what's going on, sort of a little bit. But I think, for my taste, he plays the low F too early. I think he should play the low F right on the trill after the cadential material has been played. Instead, he plays it early, and then he's sort of like fooling around a bit in the right hand, and then the trill comes, and then they end. Let's listen one more time to that. But you can hear that obviously from basically the pickup to that bar, to the bar with the Adagio, which is actually written later, the Adagio comes from the pickup there, or the cadenza, the cadence. 220... It works, but it's just not quite. Yeah, it's quite free from both sides of the team, both the soloist and the continuo team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play from a little bit further behind, because there is a sort of cadence already written, or a cadenza point, and they play that, and then you can hear like they get to the trill, and this is where it should end, but instead we go into the Phrygian cadence and then end, and then go to the next movement. So let's listen. So notice, as I said before, the bass player actually retakes and plays, like he plays the F, and then when we get to the trill, he plays the F again. So much more time is taken, but it's also taken between, like in the middle of the 7/6, and not before the 7/6, before we land on it necessarily. So we have the cadenza actually happening sort of on the penultimate note, or penultimate harmony. So anyway, what I'm trying to point out is that this can happen if you want it to in your own performance, where you can take more time and then have the harpsichordist or continuo team restrike the penultimate note before the final. So let's listen one more time. Oops. Yeah, I think this is a great example for us. So we have time taken here, and then I think that it's not only it's taken in a good way, and also the flow of the cadenza that they take makes makes a sort of emotional or phrasing sense. Like it makes sense in terms of phrasing or the emotional statement that they're trying to make. And that from a practical standpoint, we also see that if you run out of resonance, if you take so long that the resonance of the harpsichord is gone, or the cello or whatever is gone, then they can restrike. It's not like you have to stay within the time it takes for the instrument to resonate. When it stops resonating, you have to already be finished. So there are many options here. So we've heard a whole bunch of different examples now. Lots of food for thought. I would go through. This is on Naxos Music Library. This CD with the Academy of Ancient Music. They've got a bunch more sonatas, and of course the score is on IMSLP. So yeah. Anyway, it's more food for thought and a little bit more along the lines of sort of repertoire that we would maybe play ourselves, rather than the sort of Corelli stuff, which is arguably a little bit too early for bassoon. Anyway, yeah. So let's end it there. But I think this is still more information which can help us, think of in terms of taste or whatever, what we might try when given the same opportunity in the bassoon repertoire. So thanks for watching, and take it easy. Bye-bye.